Incredibly True Adventures of Two Girls in Love as a fun, wonderful film about two girls in love. And so I wanted to do something lighthearted and happy for Pride Month. So, yeah, it's still a very lovely film. There's lots of joy in it, and at the same time, they are not pretending they don't live in the actual world, which is kind of it's a good combination. So they're incredibly true, and they're also doing adventures. Like what do teenagers, what adventures do teenagers have? One of the major differences between that world and the world that I was a teenager in is that teenagers have cars in America. So Evie has a very, very nice car. And everybody comments on how nice the car is. And it's a $50,000 car. So, yeah, so her background has good middle class money. Whereas Randy's background is like they got nothing. And Randy's always working after school, etc., etc. So, yeah, you kind of have a little bit of the Romeo and Juliet vibe to it, but it's nowhere near as serious. Which is really nice. Because you'd have to kind of think about who is Romeo, who is Juliet. But if Randy is Romeo, Randy does have a kind of girlfriend. And Juliet, in this case, has a suitor. Yes. Paris, the suitor, is in this case... I didn't take note of any of the guys' names, I'm afraid. So let's go with Frank. That is the boyfriend that is a suitor, but he's very soon going to be the ex-boyfriend. And Evie just slides in from that to being with Randy and them having a lovely little romance. Randy is doing the having not quite sex, as I think I understand it, with the married woman. And then, because she says, when they finally do end up in bed together, she says to Evie that she has never done that. So it's like, okay, so what were they doing? Just kissing behind the store or something? I don't know. But it's all sweet teenage stuff, really. At the same time, they're having to deal with actual problems. Randy is flunking, kind of, her high school. Not entirely, because the school gives two more options. I mean, you see her struggling throughout the first half of the movie. Is she needs to get her math grades up. She's not passed enough of math. So that's a big problem. Meanwhile, Evie gives her a book. It's the Walt Whitman, of course. You have to have Walt Whitman. and then she completely just goes off the deep end, just reading that constantly. And it's a theme throughout the film, to the point where eventually they kind of like swear their undying love to each other on Walt Whitman. Which is so cute. So I think maybe there was a little bit of let's hit some of the points of Romeo and Juliet, but not go to any of that horrible stuff. I loved at the ending where they have everybody is the girls got themselves into a motel, and all her back group, including the people who are anti, and all the other girls' back group, everybody's social environment has gathered there haphazardly and screaming at the door, and then they're going, well, we could have demands. We should demand something, because they all wanted them to come out of the hotel room, out of the motel room. And it's like, we should put demands in. And one of the demands that Evie comes up with is a tutor for Randy, which is really a good idea, because Evie's mother has loads of money and it doesn't take much. Also, the school gave two options. for Randy to get her exams. One is a starts with a G, but I forget what the actual abbreviation of it is. But it is the where you get the high school diploma points or something, but you don't actually go through the last year of high school, or it's something like that. But anyway, so she can get those, so she can. I would imagine that would be like evening classes for only the classes that she's missed, or that she doesn't have the grades for. And the other one is summer school, so it's like in only the summer, and then she's good to go to a college. So her aunt gets very upset over it. And I would say, loving aunts, we love the aunts and the wife and all that. But do you really need to get that upset over it? This girl is clearly working her ass off, getting her mathematics up. She's very good in all the other stuff, looks like. So just say, okay, you didn't get it quite right now. Let's see about summer school. Then you can get a proper diploma, or we do that GD, whatever it is. And that's how I would do it, I think. But no, they have to get very, very upset. So that was not necessary. But like I said, this movie doesn't have it. It makes it. Yes, there's drama, but there's not like drama that you can't. I mean, there's drama. Here's the drama, and it already has 2 proper solutions. I mean, nobody's dying in this film. Yay! Yay! Everybody's alive. So, and it's just lovely. The actresses are great. They make 2 seconds of time they spent on the fact that one of the girls is black. Well, it's like you could also spend a couple of seconds on the fact that the other girl's white. I don't know. I started watching it and it was like, okay, Randy would be considered trans. Until there was a moment where she's complaining that people address her with him or sir. And so like, oh, she's not trans. She's just a tomboy. Or not just a tomboy. She is a self-respecting tomboy. And and it's like that. That's, there's nuances. It's lovely. It's great. Could they have used a little bit bigger budget? That would have been nice. At the same time, they made it. And in 1995, I think at that point we were making Jeffrey, maybe 96 or so. So they were starting to make these types of films, but they were all quite new, because before that it was high drama, high stakes drama, and...
Or crime.
Yeah, crime. Crime, not good to do crime films with... and calling that LGBTQ representation. So... No, it's lovely. Pretty much everybody is female. We've got 3 guys. We got the woman that Randy was banging, but apparently not banging, and her husband. So like, got a guy twice removed, but he turns out to be handy at the end there. And then we've got Evie's former boyfriend, who is still boyfriend when the movie starts. So he gets the. And then we have the best buddy, which I assume is Hey Jay, because I really, for whatever reason, I never caught his name. Yeah, and he's about as queer can be. So yeah, we've got. This film does show that it is very natural for the queer community to congregate, also in like, your off hours, not just we go somewhere and we congregate there, but literally they all end up living in the same house. Randy ended up living with her lesbian aunt because her mom didn't want her with all God stuff and all of that stuff. So that naturally got together, and then she's describing their house, which is like a super pride bastion. And she's like, oh, it's just normal, until she walks into the high school. She's going, oh, yeah. But her best friend in school is super queer boy. So, yeah. And then they spend some time on Evie and her mom, who is doing all the, you know, this is what's good for the child, da, 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 da. But they're talking in terminology of that, like, outright, which is very odd. But I think that's a quirk of the film, is to, so the mom talks to her in didactic and educational ways of of having to talk to her, and then Evie talks back like that and says, yeah, but it is better for me to learn to distance myself from my mother in this period of my life. It's like, okay. And then the whole thing breaks down when the mom finds Evie and Randy having had a lovely, lovely evening in the house. I really don't see how they could have cleaned that all up in a day, because it was they trashed the living room, they trashed the kitchen, they trashed the mom's bedroom because it had a double bed in it. Yeah.
And it is now christened.
Yes, there's a lot of walking around in towels by Evie. Yeah, I love the whole vibe of the film. I'm glad it is still as good as I remembered it. And I saw some behind the scene things that you can just look up on YouTube. And it turns out that the entire crew was female. And in 1995, that was very unusual. That is, like, I haven't really heard of any other film that did that. I mean, there must have been productions of specific feminist films. We could look up, for instance, The Women in 2008, whether or not that one had specifically, like, crew cast. Well, cast, yes, but crew. I think they should actually do that more often, because there is really no reason why they have to be dudes. And you may get a certain sensibility going on the sets when you're saying, no, we're doing a lesbian story, we're doing it full on, outright, and let's see who at least in the community, it's like all the guys, but you have to be queer in some way. Can you do that? Probably not. But I think it would be really cool. It worked out for this one. I have noticed when you have a female director that sometimes you get, like, surprising camera angles or interesting shots that you normally don't see. There's a different eye sometimes, not all the time. It also depends then afterwards how you do the editing. But I think there's a lot to be said for own voices, of course, but also for the variety of eye, of vision. How do you want to tell a story like this? We've talked about, in a previous review, about Thelma and Louise, and it was written by a woman, but it was filmed, the director was a man, and that creates a very interesting dynamic, because it's filmed quite masculine, because it's a road movie, or it's a western, modern western. You have that particular western feel about it, and at the same time we're talking about women, but we're not talking about frail, dainty women, and this movie doesn't talk about frail, dainty women as either. It's not about that type of womanhood. It is about, yes, we're women, boom, and now this is the story. So, and this one had a wink of the eye. I think Thelma and Louise had less so, but according to the director, it did. So this is a wink of the eye that I can appreciate as a woman. So yeah, this is a lovely film. I believe that Laurel Holloman, who played Randy, then went on to do the L Word. I don't know what the rest have done, but it's certainly worth looking at. Nicole Ari Parker, who played Evie, and certainly everybody else in the film. The writer also directed it, which is, like, sometimes that's great, sometimes that's a disaster. In this case, it's a good idea. So yeah, so happy Pride, and enjoy this film. It's an evergreen. You can watch this at any time, and that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.